Welcome back to Semi-Informed Football Podcast, the only football show where three grown men watch 90 minutes of football and immediately convince themselves that they've solved the entire tournament. Thank you so much for listening. I'm here joined by Mark and Matteo. And we're right here on day 4 of the World Cup, and we're going to take a really quick look at all the games so far. Just kind of talk about some notable pieces, talk about what we thought about it and our takeaways, and we're going to lead that into what games we're really looking forward to. So, guys, let's start off with the first one. First game of the day, that Group A was Mexico, South Africa. Mark, I'm going to hand this one over to you.
Yeah, it's sort of what I expected. Mexico playing at home. Are they the sharpest team here? No, but against the South African side, they were always going to get the win.
Yeah, I thought Mexico was levels above South Africa, but I mean, that being said, I can't miss the obvious talking point of this game, were the 3 red cards. To make that stat even crazier, the last 2 World Cups, 2018 and 2022, they both had 4 red cards total. So the opening game of the tournament, seeing 3 was something, to say the least.
There were more red cards than goals, Marko.
Yeah, it's crazy. Drawing a line in the sand probably is a splash for the tournament. I think it was a lot more aggressive than I thought it was supposed to be, but very interesting way to kick off the tournament. With that said, let's kind of lean into the next game of the day, South Korea and Czechia.
South Korea, I mean, honestly, they impressed me as well. They were very good on the ball, technical, thought ahead. Czechia were okay on set pieces. That was their strong suit. Because everyone there is 6'5", and Sufala, right back, has the long throw of the machine. I don't even know how to describe that. He can turn any throw-in into an essential corner kick.
Yeah.
Insane. That paired with Thomas Suchek's headers, really cool. In the end, Korean fans were happy. I saw them partying with the Mexicans after the game, after they won 2-1. But it was a pretty close game. Nothing too dirty about this.
Yeah, in this game, I just thought, even if it's a team like Czechia, not one of the big names, it's still a European squad. And so even though they don't have the glitzy names on here, they were always going to put up a dogfight here. But kudos to South Korea. Great goals.
Yeah, I always thought this one was going to be a little bit closer. Like Czechia, say what you want, but they came through the European qualifying campaign. Yeah. And this was definitely, in my mind, this was a very close matchup, and it played out really well. So, very entertaining game.
Although I will say, Son, the main man for Korea, didn't have his greatest game. Yeah. Missed plenty of chances, didn't look that great. So I don't know if it's him being outside the top leagues or if it's an off game, but...
No. You're living in the past, Matteo. He's not in his prime.
Yeah.
No, but still, I think we expect a lot better from Son. More of a lethal kind of finisher, even at his age. He showed nothing near that.
Yeah, let's see how he factors in for the rest of the games, at least in the qualifying campaign. Okay, let's go into the second day, Group B, Canada, Bosnia, and Herzegovina in Toronto. That was a tie, 1-1. Mark, what did you think about this game?
Well, listen, I think it was disappointing on many factors for Canada. Jonathan David didn't live up to the billing. But Tani Oluwaje, it's the same thing I see from him, and I just don't know why other people don't see it. Looks spectacular, but cannot fit. And as a striker, and I said it before, as a striker, you got to finish. He does great to get into position, to muscle out the defender, make the turns, just create space, but cannot put the ball in the net.
One thing that I want to point out is that the first goal that Bosnia-Herzegovina scored off of a corner kick, I thought it was really poorly covered, and really kind of like a stab to the heart. But good, Canada did come back and tie off the game. Matteo, what did you think about this one?
No, I think you're spot on when you mentioned the whole poor defending on set pieces. That was the only real threat Bosnia had. But Canada, the thing is, they're at home in Toronto, right, with the new expanded stadium. I get they're going to be nervous. That was to be expected. But I just felt they deserved so much more from this game. And if they had a little more composure, which they showed in the second half, after some fantastic subs by coach Jesse Marsh, they could have won this game easily. They led in every category: shots, possession, corners. They had about 20 corners. It was ridiculous. They could have won this game so easily. Put a few chances away, have a tad more finesse. But luckily, Kyle Larin steps up to get the point for the Canadians.
Kyle Larin, for the kids out there, that's what you got to do. Turn and shoot. When you're in the box, just turn and shoot. That's exactly what you're going to get from that. Sure, there's a deflection, but you don't get that without taking those shots, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think it was a little bit of butterflies, first World Cup game at home? First one where you're actually favored to win the game. Do you think that was a little bit of it, or just, and then they'll settle down as the tournament goes on? Like, what do you think, Mark?
Well, they have no choice but to settle down. Yeah. I don't know how they feel. Maybe slightly encouraged that the Swiss tied.
Yeah.
Maybe that gives them hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, going into that, the later game from San Francisco was Qatar, Switzerland, and they did tie. So I think we might be at odds right now, where you said that they were encouraged by that tie. I almost feel like it makes it a little bit more difficult for Canada, because I feel that now Switzerland is starting to get a little bit nervous. I don't know if they needed extra motivation, but they're going to feel like the pinch in order to kind of really put away both Canada and Bosnia.
Yeah. Well, I guess what works in Canada's favor is that Switzerland plays Bosnia next, right? So the Swiss will be coming out flying, I would have to think. Because I thought their game was a bit of a letdown too, where they should also been dominating Qatar and they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So that when Canada plays them, the Swiss will perhaps be a little more depleted, because now for them, it's a must-win scenario in every game they have left. Qatar was the easy opponents. They want to top this group. They should top it. But now Canada is in a spot where it actually does look realistic for you to win this group. You beat Qatar. I'm not saying it's a given, but I kind of am. Beat them and then go on to the Swiss, where it's a make or break. It comes down to one game, and after tying the opener where you should have won, you can't ask for much more. This is a gift for Canadians.
But at the same time, Matteo, Qatar, they can't be considered this massive underdog. I thought they played the Swiss quite tight.
No, I think the exact opposite. Qatar, for me, have no real chance, and they're fortunate to tie up that game.
Okay, let's go into Group C. And this is probably one of the first games that were really, really kind of highly touted. But Brazil, Morocco, and that they led that to a tie. Matteo, what did you think there?
Oh, God. This, for me, was the first major game of this tournament. And if you're not a soccer fan and you see Brazil, Morocco, you might say, what are you talking about? Trust me, if you know the game, you know Morocco is a massive player in this game. They came third at the last World Cup. They are technically reigning African champions. They have a defense that's almost impenetrable, and they're stacked in all parts of the field. Brazil are not what they used to be. They're not the old team with Ronaldinho, Ronaldo. Now, their main guys are Rafinha, Vini, not quite at that caliber. So going into it, I was really interested to see what would happen. How would they match up? And I think a 1-1 tie was the final result. It was a fair draw. We saw a fair result. We saw some brilliance from individuals, in particular Vini with his goal. A good through ball from Morocco to get the chip over Alisson. It was a fairly matched contest, and this was the kind of game you'd expect to see in the knockout rounds.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Matteo just said there. It's not the Brazil of old. They shouldn't even call themselves the Samba Boys anymore. There's no dancing. Sure, there's some technical ability, but I just think they were off. And that Morocco goal came because of massive miscommunication between Gabriel and Alisson.
Yeah, I'm going to add with this is I think the result was fair. I don't think we should have went forward with either of the teams. I do want to point out that I did think Vinny's blast was amazing. So that was a good punch to really, I guess build up his stature in this World Cup.
It was a nice goal, but I think the main talking point, especially around players for Brazil, was the one who didn't play in that game, in Neymar. I thought all the cameras and eyes were on him, and I want to see, when he is fit, the role he'll play in the team.
He's going to be meaningless.
Awesome. I don't know about that one, but Endrick should have played for sure, I think. Ancelotti has an agenda, I think. Yeah, Igor Thiago was their striker, and boy, oh boy, I was thinking to myself the whole game, why is Endrick not playing? And I thought back to the Real days where Ancelotti was benching Endrick just in the same way he is here. And myself, I'm not a Brazilian guy, but it gave me tremendous, a big headache. I can't even begin to describe when you have this young fireball off the bench, dying, itching to get into a game like this, and you're choosing to put on players who play in Saudi Arabia ahead of him. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think it's kind of brutal on his confidence. And I was interested to see how he was going to factor in, again, Neymar as well. And, just a regular kind of cast from Brazil. Okay, let's head into the last game from Group C. So Scotland with a slight win over Haiti. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, I thought both teams played well. I thought Scotland really respected Haiti. Haiti had their chances too. I thought it was a bit back and forth. I was expecting a little bit more from Scott McTominay. He still did fantastic, especially defensively. But credit to John McGinn again, another one who just put it on net. Put it on net. Don't blast it over. And you get a lucky deflection and it'll go in.
No, I think you're right. Haiti played well. For everyone's eyes, the massive underdog in this game, they held their own. And even in the stadium, dominated with Scottish fans, there were a few Haitians in there, and their presence was felt for sure. Their defense, they held on. They had a few chances. Just, I think they're missing those like little bits of quality with the players they have to compete with these teams. But that being said, I wouldn't be shocked at all if a team, even like a Brazil, struggles to find a way past this defense, because realistically, the Scotland goal came off of a deflection. Apart from that, there weren't many clear-cut chances for them to score. So I can easily see this team in Haiti being an upsetter for a team wanted to come first in this group.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Listen, I'm going to say that this Scottish team, in my mind, is one of the best Scottish teams we've ever seen. But I just think Haiti, they're such an underdog, but they are good.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Like, honestly, watching that game, I thought Haiti came out really well conditioned and really moving the ball well and actually really chasing it down. So I was actually impressed with that. So, within this kind of discussion right now, you were talking about how Scotland was giving a lot of respect to Haiti. Now we're going to go into the first matchup in Group D, U.S. over Paraguay.
Yeah.
Was the USA giving respect to Paraguay, or they were just taking care of business?
Taking care of business. I proved Matteo wrong once again, and CISO wasn't going to factor in and upset the USA. You know what? I forgot about Folarin Balogun.
Yeah.
But he is an incredible player. When he was at Arsenal, he just wanted more minutes that they weren't going to give him. But I thought his goals were sensational. He actually bagged that hat trick, but it was offside. But I thought the States played well. That fourth goal, who was it? Gio Reyna. Beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. So, watching this game, I don't think Paraguay has a chance.
I mean, the States looked pretty good. I can't lie. They definitely did. It was a bold shout of me to say Paraguay have a chance in the opening game in the States. That being said, you proved me wrong again. Nevertheless, I gotta agree. They did look quite good. Balogun especially. I think all of us forgot about him entirely. But he is actually a quality striker, so I will give it to him. And not gonna lie, in this group of Turkey and Australia included as well, US might seem to top it after this performance, but we shall see.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that. Let's go into the second game of Group D. So that Australia over Turkey. Was that something that threw you off, or was that something that, you know what, they expected? I thought this was going to be a tighter tie. I honestly kind of called this one to be a tie. I knew it was going to be a great game. But what did you think?
Yeah, I thought that we all called, and lots of people online have predicted Turkey to actually win this group, forgetting the fact that they got in by a means of a playoff. Yildiz didn't even start the game, which boggled my mind. Unless
he was injured. That's why he's injured.
Yeah, but he played a half, right?
Yeah, so, I know.
I don't know. Arda Güler, maybe it just shows that he's not that good, and they need more of a team, I guess. I didn't realize it's been so long that since Turkey had been to the World Cup. But again, not just Arda Güler, you had Çalhanoğlu. That was probably one of the most exciting games. It was back-to-back, end-to-end, shots. The guy who scored for Australia, and I don't know much about them, but that goal was fantastic, that first goal. Second goal was good as well. Australia, to me, first time watching them in a long time, they just look like they're a well-gelled group.
Right.
And they're playing for each other. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, and sometimes that's enough. And for me, Australia seems like that team that might not be one of the favorites, but one of the teams that nobody really ever wants to play. It's always a hard, scrappy match. And look, they came out of this one successful.
It's true. Even like last World Cup, Australia played against Argentina, narrowly losing like 2-1. It was a close tie. I think every time they've gone out, they've lost to either an eventual champion or a strong team. So you're right, kind of forgotten about, but they shouldn't be overlooked at all, especially seeing last night's display, because these are all like tall 6'5" guys in the back. They could park the bus, athletic Australians, hit you on the counter. When I actually did my predictions for the group here in Group D, I had Turkey first, Australia second, and the States third. But I know Australia are better than most people think. So I'm shocked to see them win 2-0 here. But that being said, key guys were missing on Turkey, so I wouldn't count them out just yet.
Yeah. So is our semi-informed consensus that Australia is going to get out of this group now?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I took a look at this group and I said this was sort of a mini group of deaths, right? Because I thought all three of those teams, no offense to Paraguay, but were very equally matched, and any of them could really win this group. I'm not saying right now this is Australia's group to win, however, but I think any of those three, unless Paraguay really kind of shocks us in the next game, could win this group.
Julio and Cecil banger. Trust me, it's coming.
Perfect. Okay, let's go to Group E. So Germany 7-1 over Curacao. Was this shocking? Was it a statement?
Shocking, no, but I think that it got quite exciting when Curacao tied it up at 1.
Tied it up, yeah.
For the Germans, they held their breath for a second, and they're like, at least it finally clicked for them. What the hell are we doing? It's 1-1 with Curacao. And then the jet engines came on.
Right. I felt, and Matteo would take this away afterwards, but I felt that they were starting to get a little bit creative near the end. Like the last 2 goals were really interesting. Especially Brown's goal, which, but I don't know how that came through with a back heel or anything like that. But that, it was a very creative goal.
I think it's easy to look creative and look good against a worse team.
Yeah.
So later on, like when it was 5-6-1, then you could start messing around doing these iffy through balls. But they did look really composed, and in my mind, I kind of wrote off Germany, but they are a giant. So I was looking at the team sheet and I see Musiala's back from injury, right? Mm-hmm. I see Kai Havertz, a Champions League scorer in the team. So many guys as well. The back line's solid, not the greatest, because Manuel Neuer's a grandpa now and still starting in net, but he's there. Midfield, Joshua Kimmich. Either way, it's a good squad. So I thought they were impressive. If you're a Brazil fan, they might have given you a few sad flashbacks seeing a 7-1 scoreline. But I think Germany with this game established themselves, if there was any doubt, as the top team in this group.
Amazing. Okay, let's jump into the second game from Group B. Ivory Coast over Ecuador. I know both of you are pulling for Ecuador, but was this a shock? Did you see it happening halfway through the game? Well, what's your feedback on this one?
Yeah, exactly. Halfway through the game, I thought Ecuador were going forward. They were attacking, had shots and chances in the first half. And for them, it was a tale of 2 halves where Ecuador reverted back to Ecuador of old, where you just sit back instead of moving forward. And you're not going to win a game moving forward. And I get it in the late stages when both teams have really pushed for a win. Like the 85th minute, at this point, it's better to preserve the tie than give up the goal. But then what happens is they gave up the goal.
Yeah, Ecuador, I mentioned this as well, talking about dark horses, future stars. Ecuador can defend, but they cannot attack. And when they're trying to play through balls and create chances, so Enner Valencia, who missed a golden chance in the first half, had 3-4 touches in the box to control and shoot. He misses the net entirely. You hit 2 or 3 crossbars. This game could have looked entirely different had they had a lethal finisher or even a semi-lethal finisher in the front line. But they didn't. And because of that, they were forced to stay back in their shell, look like Ecuadorian teams of previous years, which haven't done well in the World Cup. And eventually Ahmed Diallo pulls off a good finish to make it 1-0. And as an Ecuadorian myself, this was beyond frustrating because I think most people had Ecuador as a dark horse. I had my doubts, but I think with this loss, it almost knocks them out of the tournament unless they can pull off a masterclass against Curacao and maybe get a tie against Germany, but chances are looking slim.
Yeah, but I think you're being a bit harsh here. Like in that first half, they hit the crossbar twice. Ener Valencia was slipping when he took that shot. And then there was another 2 shots that, probably should have been finished. But that would have been, 5-6 goals. So I don't think you're giving them enough credit. The finishing wasn't there, but I mean, there's no finishing in lots of games.
I know. I just don't think we have anyone to provide that. Like, realistically, it's one thing to have a bad game. We don't have good enough players going forward to finish these chances, which forces us to revert back to our shell. And it was painful to watch. It really was, because with so much talent on the bench as well, look at Kendry Paez not even being used. It really causes a headache for myself as a viewer.
But do you think if they played the same way they did in the first half, then maybe they would have won?
I don't think so. I really don't. Because I saw in the second half they tried pressing at times, at spells, but I think the age was showing on their number 9, Ener Valencia, the captain. I said it before, I don't know why he's playing, let alone wearing the captain's armband, but when you have alternatives who aren't quite as good as him, fine, but younger, stronger, fresh legs, why on earth are you still relying on a guy who's way past his prime to get you a goal when you most need it? Yes, experience is important, but when you're facing defenders in Ivory Coast who are 6'5", you're not going to do much.
Interesting. Japan, Netherlands. Now, this was a game that I had called as being a tie. I have a pool tracker to prove that. However, I thought this was a blast of a game, and I think it was really, really heavy from both sides. Mark, what did you think about this one?
So when the game was starting, I was texting in the group chat that Crescencio Somerville to me was really electrifying in the EPL this year on a poor West Ham team. And so I saw the lineup and I'm like, wow, the Netherlands is pretty stacked actually. You got Van Dijk, Mickey van de Ven, Van Heck, Verbruggen, just going through the whole lineup, like all these big name players. I said, okay, they're going to do fine. But then I was thinking back to our Dark Horse pod when you mentioned all about Japan. And yeah, Japan to me is always a scary unit. So yeah, the game played out the way I thought it would. I'm really sold on Japan, actually. I think Japan can cause problems for a lot of teams. Interesting fact, they haven't lost a game to a European side since 2019. And that's games against the likes of Germany, the Netherlands, Croatia, Spain, and sometimes in meaningful games. So I think that's quite a feat. And the other day when I talked about countries outside of Europe, once they can really sort of mesh a number of things, and one of them is confidence against European teams. And I think Japan has that. And all they need to do is put together a couple good passes into the net. And Japan can be a threat. So I stand by that. Netherlands, I think both these two teams should get out of the group. It should be interesting to see the Netherlands against Sweden.
Interesting. Sorry, and at the time of recording, Sweden Tunisia hasn't started yet, but that would wrap up Group F. So, with that said, let's kind of look for the next few days. Looking forward, what games are we really looking for? What stories are we looking for? What excites us the most? Matteo, I'm going to give this one off to you. Like, what do you think are you looking the most forward to over the next few days?
I want to see how Spain play tomorrow, which is a big game against Cape Verde. If Lamine Yamal plays or not, how they perform. It should be an easy win, but I'm going to say it. There's no way Cape Verde has a chance. That's one game for sure. France-Senegal, also a major game. Am I smelling an upset? Maybe a little hint of it, but I think France are favorites for sure. But you never know. Senegal are very strong, and just like Morocco, an African team versus a European or South American giant might surprise you unless you're listening to the pod. So there's that. And I think another one I want to see, the last one, England, Croatia. England should win that. They always do well in the group stage. Later on, they choke, but they should win that game easily.
Mark, what about yourself?
Okay, so there's quite a few interesting things I'm looking forward to. Spain, Cape Verde, I think I'm expecting sort of like that 7-0
I think
thing that Germany did, right? I'm excited to see Belgium and Egypt because to me, Belgium is an aging squad who's really their only chance is through Courtois, really. Okay. I am curious to see an aging KDB and Lukaku. On the flip side, of course, I'm excited to see Mo Salah and this young Egyptian team. I am also curious about how well Saudi Arabia is going to play since the inception of their league, pretty much, and how it's grown. I want to see if any of their homegrown league players have risen and how they're going to play against a Uruguay team featuring Darwin Nunez. And then I think after that, the other two games I'm excited to see are Iraq and Norway. Simply because it's Norway's return, and we got Holland in the mix. And then the last game for me would probably be England, Croatia. Of course, you want to see which England team decides to turn up.
interesting that's going to be a very tight matchup. I'm just going to add two other games here. I think you guys went over it quite well. I'm going to echo one of your most recent one, Marko, where you said Iraq and Norway. I'm really interested in this one because I was following Norway straight through European qualification, and they really handled that group. But putting Italy away twice. Very, very solid team. Not just Holland. However, Holland is there, one of the most dynamic strikers in the game right now. So I'm very, very interested to see, how they're doing this on a world stage. How can they adapt to that? And lastly, neither of you mentioned this one too, but not for the matchup, because I just want to see how Portugal takes to this tournament. They're playing Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't know if this is going to be too much of a matchup for Portugal, but I want to see what kind of tactics they deploy. How the massive talent that they have, how that actually shows on, and honestly, how does Cristiano Ronaldo really factor in?
So I wanted to chime in because we never talked about Portugal, because I think Portugal for us is one of the favorites along with France and Spain, right? And my only thing about Portugal is this. Roberto Martinez, the coach, he is in love with Ronaldo. Last tournament, he took him, started him. Is he going to want to do that again? If he doesn't, it's going to cause ripples there with the group. So I think it really depends on how well. And Martinez is known as a tactician and not as a man manager. So I think Portugal's chances really hinge on Martinez. How well he can manage the dressing room and this fading star.
Yeah. No. Honestly, it's a good problem to have all these all this great talent, but you're right. How do we employ Cristiano Ronaldo the correct way?
And finally, before we wrap this up, I do want to mention I like the new FIFA rule changes. The 5 seconds to get the throw in. Or if you're injured and you require help, you got to leave the field. And if you don't, then you're off for a minute. I think it's amazing how all these football players are miraculously healed all of a sudden compared to the league play. It speeds things up. It takes away the tomfoolery. And I quite like this rule change. And I thought it was embarrassing of Moises Caicedo to try and argue the fact or come back on right away. All the players were explained the rules. If you need help, get off. If not, get off for a minute.
So we've still got plenty of football ahead. So make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We're going to start ramping up a lot of our podcasts this time, giving you a lot more analysis, a lot more kind of conversation from the three of us. So until next time, we're keeping you
semi-informed.